So, of course, Maris loses. And the first thing McAllister says to Alice is that she needs to first apologize to him. So Alice looks confused, but then she apologizes and she says that, she's given him everything and he doesn't give her anything. And McAllister then tells her, he doesn't acknowledge what she says because he could care less. So he tells her to turn around and undo her pants. And then he turns to Maris and he says, what would you think would be an appropriate number? So Maris is like, no, like, don't do anything else. Like, no, I don't want you to hit her. Like, no. And this played right into what McAllister wanted to happen. And so he then has Alice get on her knees and give him a blowjob while Maris watches. And he first kisses Alice like this nice passionate kiss, and she has her lipstick smeared on him, on his cheek, and he tells her, I was thinking of Maris the whole time. This is some cruel stuff. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh. Then he taunts her when she goes down to give him the blowjob. He's like, you probably can't even get me hard. He was like, I'll probably just have to think about Maris. And so Maris is like, oh my gosh. And then he's staring at Maris the whole time. He doesn't even look at Alice. And so, as twisted as this visual is, Maris found herself like turned on, but she's not going to admit it. But she was turned on. And so he basically finishes. He comes on her face, and Maris is like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, oh my gosh. But she can't get that look of his face when he came. Like, it was just so sexy. And it's like she's freaking out that that's stuck in her head. So they go back to Cape Hill, and she finally fully moves into Royce's room. And she gets a call from her mother while she was on her way to go to her dress fitting for her wedding. And apparently Emily's baby, it's not moving. So they're on the way to Boston Mass General. And so while Maris was in the room, Emily was like, oh my God, I think my water broke. And when they pulled back the covers, it was red. And Maris can't handle blood. So she passed out. And she knocked her rib on the chair. So basically, Emily almost, she has the baby, but she almost died in the process. And while she's there, Royce comes to see her. And then the father of the child, Dr. Gallant, her professor, who's married, he comes in with this big bouquet of flowers later on that day. And, at first Maris is like, well, why are you here? And he's like, I came to see my daughter and I came to see Emily. And she was like, well, I'll let her make that decision. And so, of course, Emily's like, fine, he can come in. And, he apologized to her and everything like that. But Maris notices how Dr. Gallant kind of looks at Royce, kind of like he knows him. But it was like this weird look he gave him. And so she had asked Royce, like, she noticed it, but she didn't say anything. But she did notice that there was this weird look that the Dr. Gallant guy gave Royce. So for her birthday, Maris's birthday, so this is a few weeks later, for her birthday, Royce was going to take her to the Caribbean. He was going to use the family jet. Well, when they went to go, McAllister took the jet because apparently he had pressing business. And so, he did it on purpose. Like, he didn't, he doesn't want them going off away. You know what I mean? That's out of his control. He hates that. Even though he's not going to be there, but at least he can still control that they're not on some Caribbean island having a beautiful time. And so they just stay, at the house. And so a few days later, while Maris is in class, because she is in her, senior year, at Edison's, McAllister pops up because he is the guest speaker for her class. And the whole time she's looking at him, she cannot stop thinking about the look he had when he came. And she actually tries to embarrass him, and she gets embarrassed. And I laughed, and I thought it was hilarious, because I'm like, that man is brilliant. He knows his business. He's brilliant. Why did you think you were going to be able to talk to him any kind of way in front of people and he wasn't going to silence you? Like, seriously. So I laughed. I loved that he got her. So then it's about 2 months before the wedding. And Maris, one night, she goes downstairs because she can't sleep. And of course, she runs into McAllister. And he lets her know that, he was wrong for what he did at the cabin. He's like, don't carry that guilt. I'll carry it. He was like, I shouldn't have made you stay there and watch that. I was wrong. And that night, when she goes back to sleep, she has a dream, because the next day is her graduation. And she has a dream about McAllister going down on her at the initiation. And so when she woke up, she sees Royce, and she sees, like, him looking at his phone and him, like, jacking under the sheets. And she's like, oh my gosh, he is jacking off the porn. And so the first thought she had was what she had been told, which was, he's going to get bored with you. And she's like, oh my God, is it already starting? And then he tells her, he's like, I heard you moaning in your sleep. I was just trying to make sure I was ready for you when you got up. And that made her feel a little bit better. So then we fast forward a few months, and now it's her wedding day. And McAllister comes to see Maris before she walks down the aisle. So, of course, everyone gets out the room. And he gives her a present. It's a ring that belonged to Julia, Royce's mother. And he tells her that, it started off as a game, me wanting to win. He was like, and somewhere along the way, you changed me. And he was like, even though I know that you're going to marry Royce today, he was like, you can be with whomever you want to behind closed doors. And he tells her that even though she denies that there is a connection, he knows that she knows that they have one. And he makes the statement, my persistence means you and I are inevitable. He was like, we are inevitable because I love you. And I was like, dang, that's crazy. But like, at least he could admit that he loved her. And when he said that, I absolutely believed him, And that's something to look at. At least he could say to her he loved her. Whereas Royce can only say it when other people are around and it's for show. But when it's just the two of them, he won't say it to her, And so, of course, Maris gets mad because, hell, this is her wedding day. So she tells him to get the F out. And, McAllister didn't like it. And so he decides to throw a little salt on the fire. And he says, if you don't believe me, he says, I suggest you ask Royce about his relationship with Dr. Galliant. And so when they're on their honeymoon, so they go through the wedding. Of course, the whole time, McAllister's looking like, wish I didn't have to be here. And so they go to their honeymoon. I think the French Riviera. And Maris told Royce, about what McAllister had said to her, before the wedding. And he tells her, no, I don't know who Dr. Galliant is. And she knew, because whenever he lies, there's a pause. It's like a split second, but it's a pause before he speaks. And so she knew he had just lied to her. And so while they're on their honeymoon again, Maris can't sleep. But it's crazy that she texts McAllister. She is on her honeymoon. And she texts McAllister. And I'm just like, this girl, like, what is going on with her? And so she basically wants to know, how do you know that he knows him? How are you so sure that Royce knows Dr. Gallion? And so he sends her proof. It's a check for $100,000 that was from the payer, which was Royce's initials, RMH. And he says, I know it's Royce because those are the same letters that he uses when he purchases stock. It's his initials. And so Maris is pissed. She goes and she wakes up Royce out of his sleep. And she's like, you better tell me the truth now. And he admits to her that, he was going to do anything to secure her as his wife, even if that meant sending this guy after her sister. And she's like, but you changed the course of her life. Like, that's just not okay. You don't do that to people. And he was like, I would do anything to secure you. So I know I'm supposed to be sorry for it. I know it's messed up, but I would do anything. And so she lets him know, you know what? I don't really want to be with you tonight. I'll sleep on the couch. And he's like, no, I'll go sleep on the couch. You stay in here. So then she lets him know the next morning. She's like, yeah, I'm ready to go. We can cut this short. She was like, I'm kind of over it. And she was like, and when we go back, I'm going to be going to my old room. And he's like, that doesn't look right. Like, no, you can't do that. That's not going to look good. If we come home and, we're coming back early already and you're going to go back to your room. And she's like, well, that's what I need to do. So that's what's going to happen. So, they get back to the estate. A few days later, she has to go change her name and everything. So she has to go to the lawyer to do some paperwork that Royce told her she had to take care of. And she finds out that she is the chairman of the board of RMH, those same initials, of RMH Industries, and that the stocks that he bought from in Ascension, all those stocks, is worth $650 million. So now Maris is like, okay, maybe I'm starting to understand a little bit more about this plan that he has. And so she's trying to get a little bit more information out of McAllister. So over the past few months, McAllister, he still had the chess game set up. And so he had moved a piece and he was waiting for her to come and move another one. So finally she moved it to let him know, game on. She's willing to play again. And so then he, of course, is like, okay, let's have a game, but we're going to do it in my room. So, of course, they go to the room. I don't know why she keeps challenging this man in chess. She loses. It's the funniest thing. I know she won that one time, but it's like she loses so much. So, of course, she loses again. But Maris offers a deal to him. And she lets him know that basically the deal will require her to basically undress and make herself come, but McAllister isn't allowed to touch her. Actually, these are McAllister terms. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. These are McAllister terms. And so while she's doing this, she's able to ask McAllister whatever question she wants, and he has to answer it honestly. So Maris then finds out that McAllister already knows about the vote of confidence. He knows that's going to happen because he's found out that Ascension has all this corruption going on. So he's already figured out what Royce's plan was. So now he's already started working on the other members of the board to make sure he's going to have the votes when that vote of confidence comes to remain in his seat. And so Maris is just kind of like, oh shoot, like she's got to tell Royce, what's going on. Of course, while she's in there, she's gonna come